Yeah, the inflation rates are cooling, but we all remember a couple years ago when prices really shot up. And people I'm meeting at food banks and at events like this, the West Side LA Free Thanksgiving event here, they're telling me that they can't seem to catch up with that still. When you think about the fact that food prices are about 20% higher than they were before the pandemic. So here at West Side Thanksgiving, the organizers did see more people lining up today, and we are also seeing more people lining up at food banks everywhere.
You have a happy Thanksgiving.
This is not video from the pandemic. This is a line this week of people waiting to receive food at a church in time for Thanksgiving.
I have to do it, and that's the way it goes.
Chris Merrill has been coming to this Pasadena, California church every week for several years.
Well, my wife won't even come because she'd be embarrassed.
He's a retired mechanic living on less than $700 Social Security per month. He never thought he'd need help from a food bank, and he's not alone.
Never seen a line that long before. This time it was all the way up and down the street.
Lines are getting crazier.
We first met Anna Duran 2 years ago when her home in Riverside, California, saw inflation at almost 10%, even though inflation has cooled now to about 2%.
Where I have to get up at least, like I said before, 6 to be there by 6.
Duran still goes to weekly food distributions. 2 years ago, she told us she was turning in recycling and selling jewelry for extra cash while working as a part-time caregiver. She's continued to do that, selling what little jewelry she has left.
I only have like 2 or 3 more pieces that I have for as a backup resource.
The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank says they're tracking about 10% ahead in the amount of food distributed compared to last year. They're serving 900,000 people a month right now, near pandemic levels.
We can't turn nobody away.
In New York City,
some days you don't know where your next meal is coming from.
City Harvest says visits to city food pantries and soup kitchens are at the highest level on record, even higher than the pandemic's peak. In Chicago, Common Pantry says they're serving 26% more households per month than last year. Across the country, 85% of food banks in a Feeding America survey reported similar or higher demand for food assistance comparing this August with last August. Why do you think that is when inflation has actually cooled quite a bit?
I think what we're seeing here in Los Angeles is the cumulative impact of inflation. Food prices are about 25% higher than they were pre-pandemic. Now the unemployment rate has come down. We would expect the demand for food assistance to decrease, but that's not what has happened.
This comes as donations to food banks are also dropping. Anna Duran says something has got to change, which is why she cast a ballot for Trump, the first Republican she's ever voted for in her life.
When it came down to, voting, I changed who I was, and I changed hoping for the better.
But Trump is exactly what Merrill is worried about.
I am definitely worried it's going to get worse with the tariff that Trump's putting on.
Say hi, everybody. He thinks prices will jump and more people will find themselves going to food banks. But the fact that the food banks even exist makes him feel grateful.
This is a beautiful country that we live in. Say happy Thanksgiving and Merry Christmas.
Operating costs for charities are also up, and so they'd like me to remind you that if you're able to please give a financial donation to your local food bank. Giving Tuesday is a great time for that, and if you can't, they could always use volunteers. Boris Now.